Meeting of the Temple City Council, December 5th. Meeting to order. May we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Chavez.
Here.
Councilmember Fish.
Here.
Councilmember Yu.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mann.
Here.
Mayor Sternquist.
Here. Thank you. This evening, we have Jerry Jambazian here. Jerry is the owner of the Wonder Cleaners and Draperies, and he will be providing the invocation. Wonder Cleaners and Draperies has been doing business in the city for 62 years and is located at 9136 Las Tunas Drive. Welcome, Jerry.
Sure. Thank you. Let's bow in prayer. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you before you tonight to ask for your guidance and wisdom upon this council meeting. We pray that you would direct the council in the decisions that are made tonight. We thank you for dedicated council members who set policy and direction. But Father, we also thank administrators and support staff that have researched tonight's topics. We pause to pray for those who protect and serve us daily, such as our Temple Station deputies and firefighters from Engine 47. We especially think of the firefighters throughout Southern California tonight protecting life and property. We also pray for your hand of protection upon our military that are protecting our freedoms in foreign lands. I know they would rather be home for the holidays. We eagerly await this Friday's Lights on Temple City as Temple City Park is transformed into a winter wonderland as children play in 40 tons of snow and await the official visit of Santa. So, Father, we have much to be thankful for this holiday season. Help us to be mindful of those less fortunate among us. We ask this all in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Jerry. This evening, the Pledge of Allegiance will be given by Boy Scout Troop 174. Scouts presenting the flags are Dylan Malasarn, Casey Kim, Vonik Agarwal, Russell Sue, Jonathan Sue, Jaden Nim, Alex Lee, and Nicholas Cobian. Gentlemen.
Detail. Forward march. Detail. Hug.
Those not in uniform, place your right hand over your heart. Scout salute. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2.
Detail. Uniform. Detail. Forward march. Detail. Halt. Detail. Dismissed.
Thank you very much. You might see some youngsters up here. I don't want to say youngsters, but some of our youth commissioners, and they're here to actually supervise the council meeting this evening. And I'd just like to quickly introduce them. Just wave your hand. Charlie Dodge, Christy Wong, Joy Yu, Anusha Sia, Brandy Lee, Brianna Chen, Chloe Chong, Justin Chai, and Zoe Su. So thank you for being here this evening. And they're part of our council mentoring program, and they're here just to do an observation of the meeting this evening. So I wanted to acknowledge them. Welcome. We move to ceremonial items, and we have Pet of the Month, and Cindy Rigney is here with San Gabriel Valley Humane Society. And she is a board member, and she is going to introduce our Pet of the Month.
Good evening, everyone, council members, Mayor Sternquist. This is Oso. A few of you already had the chance to meet him. He was an owner surrender to the Humane Society about a little over 2 weeks ago now.
He's chubby.
The owner just unfortunately couldn't take care of him anymore. Normally you see me over by the podium with the small dogs holding them up. No. This little guy is a classic example. He's only 5 years old. Only 5. Guess what breed? He's Chihuahua. Might have a little corgi, might have a little something else. You never know for sure until you do the DNA test. But primarily Chihuahua, so he is grossly overweight. So we have him on a very strict diet. He goes for walks. He is a love bug. He loves people.
Look at him.
Does well with other dogs. He is truly a sweetheart. If anybody wants to take him home for the holidays, you look in those brown eyes, you know he really wants to go home for the holidays. And you don't have to worry about Christmas trees. Doesn't need any Christmas trees. No special baking for this little guy. Okay, so this is Oso. Please come visit us, San Gabriel Valley Humane Society, 851 East Grand. And come see Oso and some of his friends, and lots of kittens and cats and bunnies too. Okay?
Cindy, I see Helen Martin taking a second look over there. You might want to take them over to visit her. Yes, in the pink jacket. Helen Martin. He's very cute. Okay, we move to item 6, public comments on items not listed on the agenda. And I don't see any up here, so is there anyone who would like to make a public comment at this time? Okay, I'm going to close public comments. We move to item 7, the consent calendar.
Mayor Sternquist, I would like to pull item 7C, please.
And I'd like to pull item 7E.
So I'll move to approve the consent calendar with the exception of items C and E.
Second.
Okay, any objections? So moved. Councilmember Chavez?
Yes, in reviewing the minutes from the, looks like the November 15th meeting of Parks and Recreation Commission, there were 2 appeals that were heard that evening, both having to do with the removal of an oak tree. Looks like both were actually on Oak Avenue as well. And looking at the minutes and reviewing the decision, I'm a little concerned about the liability issues that may arise from the decisions made in those 2 matters, and therefore I would exercise my discretionary power as a council member to appeal those decisions of the Parks and Recreation Commission and ask that staff prepare those appeals and bring them to a future meeting.
Okay.
We will follow up and we'll probably bring that appeal to the council the second meeting in January.
Okay, Councilmember Fish, you had pulled item C.
Item E.
Oh, your item, yeah.
Item E, which is actually the request from the Camellia Festival. Looking on it, I do notice that there is one change from the past, and that is under the recommendations number 5, to allow banners and yard signs in certain medians. Do we have an explanation what that means, or locations, or what?
I would let Ms. Taryn kind of talk, or Ms. Burrows speak to that. That is a change from prior years, so our Parks and Recreation Director, Ms. Burrows, can kind of speak to what maybe are some general ideas related to that.
My understanding is the grass median that is at Broadway and Encinita, the festival committee would like to put a It's like a street banner, but it would be on poles in that median. And then I believe there may be some yard signs on Baldwin, the Baldwin median, maybe Santa Anita. So there would not be a lot, and they would be specifically located in certain areas. But the larger banner would be on the median at Encinita and Broadway.
Okay.
It's like the grass median that's there?
Yes,
And is there any particular reason why there?
probably because it's the largest to accommodate a large, I believe the banner would be 8 foot wide.
Okay.
I myself, I would like to deny that part.
Can I ask why?
I'm actually looking into the future if future organizations want to start putting signs and things on mediums. I think that we have tried to discourage that with a lot of the realtor signs that go up. So I think we should kind of,
The realtor signs do go up, though.
Kathy, do you mind? I
yeah,
have a
but they're not
question.
supposed to go up.
They're not allowed. They do go up, but they're not allowed to be on public
But can I
meetings.
ask you who's removing them, because they haven't been removed the last few months?
If they have some specific locations, we can look into that, but yeah, they're not supposed to be in the public right away.
I
But
forgot.
I'm talking about the median.
That would
that's
constitute the
That's the
public
same
right,
thing?
public
Okay.
right away, yes, ma'am.
Just real briefly, refer to, refresh my recollection on the municipal code section 9-1L-3C. Is that, what is that? I don't memorize, I didn't memorize that one.
I'm trying to pull up the staff
Is that the
report
one
real
that's
quick.
similar to what, that's not the one that deals with, like campaign signs and things like that? Is this that?
Well, I believe it's the section of the code that references signs and other things that are not allowed, as you mentioned, in the public right-of-way. I don't know off
Because
the
it
top
says
of my head.
authorize it pursuant to that section. So I would, the way I read it, it's worded as if that section allows that type of action, but it sounds like
Well, I
maybe
believe it's
we
allowed
don't.
with approval from the council. It's not allowed unless it's specifically approved.
Okay, so that code section says something to the effect that they're not allowed unless it's approved by the council.
Correct.
That's kind of the gist of it.
Correct. Michael said correct. I believe it's in the zoning
Michael's
code,
nodding his
actually.
head up and down, so, okay.
Okay.
Well,
How do you want to
You
take
can
a vote
amend
on
it,
it, or?
you can make a vote to amend or if the council is so inclined to approve with the adjustment related to that one specific request.
Could I have the opportunity to talk?
Sure.
Dawn Taryn, I'm the festival director for the Camellia Festival. And the purpose for the request for the additional signage was to help to advertise the Camellia Festival. And the purpose for the Encinita location was because it's near the school traffic for both Cloverly, St. Luke's. It's a well-trafficked area. We're trying to reach areas that are not seen along Las Tunas. So that's the purpose and it's the largest median, so that was that purpose. The ones for the medians along Baldwin and Laura Zusa were because those areas don't have, in my opinion, they're a little underutilized with regards to events that are happening in this section of Temple City. There's a lot of people that go over to the Live Oak Park, but they don't know what's going on necessarily over in this area. So that was the purpose, to make sure that they were aware that the Camellia Festival was coming up this weekend.
Thank you. Tom, do you want to make a motion
Oh,
with that change?
I have just one comment. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Don't we use the electronic signs we do that for road closures, correct, for the Camellia Festival?
For
Do
the-
we do that for,
General advertising of the event? No.
no, okay.
How many of those do we have? 2 or just one?
I believe we have 3 altogether.
Okay.
so you want, it says banners, but you're only talking about one banner.
Just one banner.
And that's
The other
where
one
you're
would be kind of like the drought signs, the yard signs, because there really isn't sufficient space in the medians to put anything other than that.
And how many yard signs do you
Oh,
propose?
not that many.
What's not that many?
I'm thinking it's just a few blocks, maybe one per block.
One per block in the city?
No, in the median area along Baldwin. I can't imagine it'd be more than that. We just really want to make sure people who are going over to Live Oak Park.
You know, just if I may be heard briefly, since we're talking about this, I personally, I have a hard time with yard signs all over the place.
I do too.
I don't even like the vote for me yard signs, to be honest with you.
But we put them
But we put
up.
them up.
I know, we
but
do,
I
and
don't
we
really
put them
enjoy
up, yeah.
I just think it makes the city, I don't know, less attractive, but the placement of banners, I can understand that, but frankly, I don't, do we have that big of a problem, advertising our Camellia Festival?
I think we are
Didn't we have
not getting
all-time
enough.
numbers last year?
But going down no, of course
We
not.
didn't? I thought we
Our
did.
numbers are great. But there's a lot of traffic that goes up and down Baldwin in particularly that does not go, that is not necessarily Temple City residents that we could be reaching out to. Baldwin in particular. I actually think the better option would be to have a street banner, but there's not a street banner location there, which I think would be great since Live Oak Park is over there. But I was trying to think of an alternative to the
So
street.
you want to place one banner at Encinitas and Broadway,
Correct.
and then a number of yard signs up and down the medians on Baldwin Avenue?
Yes, over in the Live Oak Park area.
Can we get a motion?
May I make some
Unless
comments?
you have a question?
Of course.
May I make a comment?
Sure.
No, I think aesthetics is in the eye of the beholder. I personally love signs. If they're placed, if they're placed nicely in certain orderly fashion, and I do not find promoting a Camellia Festival in the location that's been described and it's objectionable to me.
Getting off to a good start.
Are there any rules on how close the yard signs have to be? If, would say we have 100 yard signs on Baldwin Avenue, in your eye of the beholder, is that gonna be
Depends how you arrange
good-looking,
them.
or-
I
I mean, there gotta be
Depends how
some-
you arrange them.
That's why I'm a little concerned. There's gotta be some, I guess I don't object to it as a whole, but it seems like we open it up and now all of a sudden, all these signs are all over the place.
That's what I'm,
Every
that's what-
organization that wants to have an
That's what I'm
event in our city
concerned
now
with.
wants yard signs up and down
Yeah.
Baldwin and every street we have.
I mean,
I just don't see the need for it.
for
to be
me,
honest.
for me personally, obviously, everyone knows I'm the biggest supporter of the Camellia Festival that there could ever be. But we have so many events in Temple City. Are we going to start doing that with everything? Are we going to start doing that with every time somebody does a fundraiser? We're going to make an exception and,
Can I just remind the council that we have sat up here numerous times and said that the Camellia Festival is the trademark festival of
yes,
Temple
I
City.
agree. I agree.
We have said that over and over and over. So I don't think
So that
that
means we have no
when,
rules for the Camellia Festival?
No.
did they not have to come before?
Well, they did, but I'm just saying, it's like,
So what I'm saying is, I'm making the point that, and I have to say, I'm guilty. I had 6 signs of mine when I was running for election on one yard, because the person asked me for some, and they just put them all on their own yard. I mean, I think that just happens, and and we leave them up for a good 2 months. This is 3 days, if that, and it is the trademark festival, as we have all agreed
But
and
is
said
it-
over and over, and I don't see it being an infringement
oh,
on
yeah, that's what it
our
sounds like.
city by the banner and the signs being neatly put up. So I know how 2 people feel, and I don't know exactly
Okay, so-
what.
when will the signs actually go up?
I think there actually is a time frame on there, but it's basically the month of February.
You know, I wish, perhaps this is, with this addition that's new, I feel a little bit of a disadvantage since we weren't really provided with a lot of the relevant information that perhaps should have been given to us to make a decision on this matter, other than just citing a code section. That's kind of my problem with the whole thing. I don't have a problem with it in general as a rule, but I would like to know what that code section exactly says, what conditions we're gonna put on it, when the signs are gonna go up, when they're gonna come down. I think that's the very least that we should at least know.
I
I can
haven't,
read the code section to the council if
thank
you'd
you.
like.
Thank you, Mayor.
The
So
dates
in-
are in the attachment to the staff report from February 1st to February 28th, or 27th, I believe it says.
From February 1st to when?
28th.
Month of February.
Authorization to
Whole
place
month, yeah.
a 4x8 Pole Street banner on the island at Encinita and Broadway from February 1st until February 28th. And then the yard signs on Baldwin and Lozu, so that doesn't have a time frame, but the assumption was it was the same as the banner.
Don, would you be willing to do a compromise and have them up for a less amount of time, maybe
Of course.
10 days? If that would make the
Of
council
course.
feel more
And
comfortable.
I would like to remind the council that you are the official sponsor of the Temple City Camellia Festival.
Yes,
Oh, I
we are.
understand.
Is that supposed to make us feel guilty?
Yeah.
Yes. No, I have no objection to that. As a matter of fact, I don't have a problem with it going up just the week of, before the Camellia Festival.
Okay,
It's
I
absolutely fine.
have a question. Since we are the official sponsor, could we use one of the automated signs? Or do we use all three of them? Who am I going to talk to? Who's in the audience that knows
I know that
this?
the automated signs go up on Las Tunas. I know about the street
About the
closure.
parking.
Right. Could we put one on Baldwin to advertise? Instead of, I would rather have one of those than have paper signs. That's just me. I'm sorry. I know it's
I'll-
just,
I actually agree with Director Taryn about the change, because I live really close to Encinita and Broadway, and I can tell you that is a very heavily traveled area. So I think the more the merrier, especially for the Camellia Festival, and it's a temporary thing. We're not going to have a permanent sign up there. I'm okay with a reduced duration if that pleases
Okay.
the rest of the council. I don't know what the duration was discussed. Was
I
it
think it was 10
10
10
days.
days?
10 days is
Yeah.
fine.
So I'll move to well, would you like more
Well,
comments?
no, I just wanted to, so that everybody knows what the code section says. It says, public property, no sign of any kind shall be erected upon or over any public street, sidewalk, parking lot, or other public place or any way, and there's a key here, without the consent of the city council, except as otherwise provided by law. So I think, they are following the law.
Oh, no,
Follow
absolutely.
the rule. They're coming to us for consideration. So I don't think by approving it, it actually approves a blanket approval of any kind.
Oh, no,
Because
I
it's
don't-
very specific
well, I know
to
that.
the community festival, so.
Okay, Mayor and Council, if I might address your attention to one other item of your code, interference with traffic. It says, "No sign shall be erected in such a manner that it will or may reasonably be expected to interfere with, obstruct, confuse, or mislead traffic." Because you're going to propose a sign in the median, I do think council needs some information to satisfy itself that the banner or sign won't obstruct, mislead, or confuse traffic.
And along those lines, if you'd like, it will be based on the review of the city manager's office and city engineer's office as well, just to make sure that those, not anything specific, but just make sure it abides by those provisions in the municipal code. If that creates any comfort.
So William, do you want to amend that
Yeah.
motion?
Well, I'll move that we authorize the placement of banners and yard signs pursuant to Section 9-1 L-3 and limit the duration of the banners and yard signs to 10 days before the Camellia Festival.
A second?
Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Fish?
Yes.
Councilmember Yu?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Man?
Yes.
Mayor Sternquist?
Yes. Okay. I believe that was the only two items that were pulled, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. So we move to item 8A, public hearing, adoption of resolution number 17-5298, certifying the environmental impact report for the mid-century general plan update and the Crossroads specific plan. Adoption of resolution number 17-5299, adopting the mid-century general plan update and introduction and first reading of ordinance number 17-1029, adopting the Crossroads specific plan. And we are going to have our community development director, it says.
Actually, I'll start off with me, Mayor Sternquist, if you don't
Okay.
mind. Thank you, Mayor. Well, Mayor Sternquist, members of the council, today is a pretty monumental day for the city, considering the general plan update since the general plan was last updated in the 1980s. So after several years of hard work by volunteer community members, consultants, community stakeholders, and city staff, we are pleased to present to the city council for your consideration the updated general plan, a new specific plan for the Rosemead-Las Tunas corridor, and the corresponding environmental documents. Taken together, these documents represent a blueprint for sustainable and manageable growth for several decades to come. While still being sensitive to the unique characteristics of our community, which Mr. Reimers will go over, the general plan still achieves to meet the complex demands that are required of all cities, locally, regionally, and on a statewide level. It recognizes that Temple City is a built-out community and has a built-out environment, but still allows for the highest and best land uses that create both economic vibrancy and a sustainable quality of life for residents and businesses. The general plan and the specific plan in combination represent an approach that manages development in an appropriate way and manages densities along the major corridors, while at the same time maintaining the single-family neighborhoods that continue to make Temple City a highly desirable community to live in. This task hasn't been easy, and has taken an interactive process and an engaged dialogue with the community and all stakeholders to strike an appropriate balance in planning the future for our community. As with any process, there are bumps in the roads, disagreements, and challenges. And it's been through the interactive process that we've been going through for many years, where we've listened, adjusted, and affirmed the creation of this new general plan and its specific plan. Scott Reimers, our planning manager, has been the project manager for several years on this project under the leadership of Michael Forbes as our community development director. I'd like to thank the general plan advisory committee who rotated over time, one of whom sits on the council today, and our consultant team at PlaceWorks, all of whom collectively, staff, the GPAC, many community members who participated in this process, have put in countless hours, hundreds of hours of work to get to the place we are today. I'd like to thank them for their hard work and commitment. So to give you a little overview of what's going to happen for the next few steps here, Mr. Reimers will go about 25-minute presentation that will kind of give you a good brushstroke overview of where the general plan is. You have a couple additional pieces of information that were presented today, which we'll be happy to go over with you as well. So with that, I turn it over to Mr. Reimers, and he'll go over the key elements of the general plan, specific plan, and EIR.
Good evening, members of the City Council and Mayor. Thank you for your attention tonight and your patience in getting this to you. Before you tonight, as you heard, is the general plan, the specific plan, and the EIR. Because there's often new people who come in to the process, we like to begin always with a little bit of background and summary for those people who are just joining us. The general plan is one of the documents you're asked to look at and adopt tonight. A general plan is a comprehensive, long-term document that talks about the physical development of the city. It's comprehensive in that it includes 7 major areas or chapters. It is long-term in that this one we set for a time span of 35 years, hoping that people will think about how they want Temple City to develop for their children and not so much focus on their present needs, but the needs of their children. And then also look at the physical development of the city. It's not about the economic development of the city. It's not about the fiscal or other aspects. It's really about the physical development of the city. It is a constitution in that all land use decisions have to be compliant with and in compliance with the general plan. So in that way, every decision that comes forward is going to have to be in compliance with this general plan. The state says that a general plan needs to have 7 different chapters or elements. Those would be land use, housing, circulation, mobility, open space, conservation, noise, and public safety. The general plan that's before you tonight has those subject areas, but with different titles. We've kind of arranged things a little bit differently than the state does. The housing element is not included in this general plan update. The housing element was previously adopted about 4 years ago and is on a whole different cycle and system that's set by the state. And so you'll be seeing that again in about 4 years from now. I want to be clear that the general plan does not intend to take people's property. This is not a plan to take people's property through eminent domain. It's not a means for the city council to acquire someone's private property. It only establishes the rules by which someone, if they wanted to develop their property, it establishes the rules for how that would develop. So again, this is not a plan to take someone's private property. If someone wanted to privately sell their property voluntarily, it would just describe how that site would develop. This general plan that's before you tonight includes a number of different pieces. That begins with an introduction, it has a vision statement, and then it has these elements or chapters: land use, mobility, economic development, community services, natural resources, and hazards. And so the economic development section talks about the physical development aspects of economic development. It doesn't get into the city budget and so forth. So the big question that a lot of people ask is, well, how is this general plan different from the existing general plan? Show me what are the major differences. And so the first major difference is about the amount and location of growth that the plans propose. The existing general plan proposed, back in 1987, proposed a total population build out at about 38,000. This proposed general plan has a population growth of up to 43,000. Now it's important to remember that's if almost every site builds out and that has a horizon year of 2050. Now generally the state recommends to adopt a land use element every 10 years to look at it. And so we will be in 10 years hopefully coming back with some modifications. So we'll be looking at these population numbers steadily through the process. The last general plan focused on adding that additional growth in multifamily areas. This general plan looks at adding a large portion of that residential growth into the Crossroads specific plan area. The existing general plan doesn't talk about how we reduce impacts on public services. That's been a big question through the process, is how will this growth affect public service? This proposed general plan does have a policy that says new development will need to pay its fair share for its impacts on the community. The existing general plan doesn't talk about how we're going to protect mature trees, which has also been a concern that's been raised at prior meetings. The proposed general plan does. It talks about encouraging on-site preservation of mature and native trees that are in good health. The existing general plan back in '87 didn't deal a lot with environmental sustainability. It was very limited. This proposed general plan includes policies on air quality, climate change, the urban forest, native plants, water resources, and stormwater. The existing general plan did not address historic preservation. This one, based on feedback we heard from the community, focuses on encouraging, incentivizing voluntary designation of properties. The existing general plan, in terms of high-density residential growth, set a maximum density at 30 dwelling units per acre and also required a minimum density of 20 units per acre. This proposed general plan increases the maximum a little bit to 36 units per acre. That increase will assist the city in meeting our regional housing need and it avoids upzoning the low-density residential areas. So those are some of the policy changes that are being proposed, but when most people think about the general plan, they think about the map. They think about the land use map. And so I wanted to highlight for you some of the changes between the existing general plan and the proposed general plan land use map. The first area is around Temple City Boulevard in Las Tunas in our downtown. The existing general plan called for these areas to be commercial. We're modifying that designation to mixed use, which is also in keeping with the downtown specific plan. Also to the north and south of Las Tunas, near Ensenada and Oak, there are some existing medium density residential areas. The general plan is looking at increasing that to high density residential. Around Rosemead and Las Tunas is where we're proposing the Crossroads specific plan. And so that area would change from a designation of commercial to mixed use specific plan. South of Lower Azusa and around Temple City Boulevard, there is an area there that's presently designated industrial, high-density residential and low-density residential. There's kind of a mixture there. The general plan proposal is to change that to mixed use. Now, there's been further conversation about this proposal with Planning Commission, so I'll go into more depth later on in the presentation about that proposal. And then the Linden Walk development off Lower Azusa is currently designated industrial. That will change to medium-density residential. Additionally, along Encinita Avenue near the intersection of La Rosa, there is an area there that's designated industrial by the general plan. Given the low demand for industrial development in the San Gabriel Valley, we don't see a strong need to maintain the industrial designation there, so we're proposing a medium-density residential designation in that area. So those are the changes that are being proposed by the general plan. So the next part of the presentation focuses on the specific plan. And again, for background and summary for people who are new to this process, a specific plan is a way of implementing the vision of the general plan. And it focuses, instead of on the entire city, it focuses on a sub-area of the city. And it provides greater regulation and more detail of what the city's attempting to do. A specific plan includes diagrams, it includes development standards, design guidelines, and implementation measures. And basically, it's a hybrid document. Like the general plan, it includes goals and policies, but like a zoning code, it also includes development regulations, setbacks, heights, and so forth and so on. And it also can include design guidelines, which the Crossroads specific plan does. So it's kind of a hybrid of general plan and zoning code. The guiding ideas of the Crossroads specific plan included creating multiple land uses to help create a sense of vitality at that intersection, giving people in Temple City a reason to stay in Temple City so they don't have to go off to Pasadena or Arcadia or other surrounding cities, but to give them the ability to be here. Breaking up large sites to improve their walkability, building with pedestrians in mind, clustering buildings around open space and plazas. We heard a lot of conversation in the community about the need for more open space and meeting areas. And throughout that, we need to create appropriate transitions to residential areas. So the specific plan areas is proposed to be divided into four main areas. South of Las Tunas and west of Rosemead, there's the mixed-use core. On the east side of Rosemead is the mixed-use boulevard district. To the north of Las Tunas is the commercial core, and then to the north of that is the neighbor transition zone. I should note that there is a proposal in staff's recommendation to remove the west side of MIDA from the specific plan, so these maps haven't been updated because we're still waiting to see the direction that the council takes. In terms of intensity, the idea within the specific plan was to place the highest intensities and the highest growth as far from the residential, single-family residential areas as possible, and then step those down as we get closer to the single-family neighborhoods. So the MUC would allow a maximum FAR or floor area ratio of 2.0. Then on the east side of Rosemead, that would step down to 1.75. It steps down further north of Las Tunas to 0.5. And in the NT zone, it would allow a maximum of 30 units per acre. In terms of height, the MUC would allow 4 to 6 stories. The MUB, the east side of Rosemead, would allow 3 to 4 stories. The CC zone north of Las Tunas would allow 3 stories. And then the NT zone actually allows, I should say, 2 to 3 stories there. The west side of Rosemead, we didn't just say 4 to 6 stories. We then even went further and said on the west side of Rosemead, if you want to do 6 stories, it has to be 300 feet from Rosemead Boulevard. And the idea there is it allows us to get some intensity and some public benefit while also pushing the most intensity away from Rosemead so it's not as visible. And then that 6-story area also has to be 100 feet from Las Tunas and Broadway. On the east side of Rosemead, in the MUB zone where we allow 3 to 4 stories, we're allowing 4 stories on the east side. So as you're driving down Rosemead, you would have similar height buildings. But on the back, in order to transition to the R3 zone, on the back 30 feet can be no more than 3 stories. And so that's how we've tried to transition from 6 stories to 4 stories down to the 3 stories that's allowed in the R3. The specific plan also includes a number of images that show how the site could be broken up into smaller pieces so that you don't have one massive structure. So that will help also create some pedestrian interest and also create some room for public plazas and open spaces, and also includes some diagrams on how those streets can be designed. Since there are a number of different property owners in the area, we wouldn't expect all the development to occur at the same time, but to see kind of a phased approach. So what we might find is that first the parking lots are built on, and then additional development might occur, and then slowly over time you may see the existing buildings there demolished to break up into smaller pieces. So again, there are a number of different property owners on the site. The city's not looking to acquire the properties, is not purchasing them through eminent domain. Based on the fact that there are a number of owners, we would probably see this in a kind of a phased manner. So all of this will be somewhat familiar to you. You had a presentation on the specific plan and the general plan about a year and a half ago, probably, or maybe it was a year ago. And at that time, you instructed staff to prepare an environmental impact report. An environmental impact report basically says what is the impact of the proposed general plan and specific plan. And what that document showed was that the impacts kind of fell into three categories. There are impacts that are less than significant. They may be impacts, but they're not significant impacts. And those would include things like aesthetics, geology, mineral resources, transportation and traffic, and so on. Another category of impact is impacts that are less than significant with mitigation. So if we put mitigation measures in place, they would be less than significant. And those would include things such as hazards, tribal and cultural resources, and utilities and service systems. And then lastly, there are 5 impacts that are significant and unavoidable. And those are air quality, cultural resources, greenhouse gases, noise, and recreation. And while significant and unavoidable seems like a scary word that's hidden in bureaucracy speak, the reality is that any general plan environmental impact report is going to have significant and unavoidable impacts. In fact, any large project is going to have significant and unavoidable impacts. And what's important there is to note is that even though they are significant and unavoidable, we are still proposing 21 mitigation measures to try and reduce those impacts to as minimal level as possible and as feasible. Now, a city council or any jurisdiction can approve a project even if there are significant and unavoidable impacts if they adopt what's called a statement of overriding considerations, and that's included in your recommendation tonight. The SOC, or statement of overriding considerations, for this project states that there are benefits that outweigh the project costs. And those benefits would be that implementing this project helps meet the objectives of the general plan and the specific plan. It meets the city's strategic plan. It promotes the city's economic vision. It implements California law, and it also implements the direction of regional governments through the RTP and the SCS, Sustainable Community Strategy. So that draft environmental impact report was sent out to local, state, and regional agencies for their comments. We did receive comments from the Sheriff's Department, the library, the fire department, the sanitation district, the local Native American tribe, and we've responded to all of those comments and concerns in Section 2 of the final environmental impact report. In addition to that, the draft general plan, specific plan, and the EIR, we also presented to the community. At that time, we received some comments in support of economic development in the community and in terms of sustainability. There were some concerns over the loss in service levels, concerns that were over-focusing on walking and biking. There were concerns from residents of Wildflower regarding the change in designation there. Throughout the process, there's been concerns about the use of eminent domain. And there were specific concerns from the owners of the restaurant Hat at the corner of Broadway and Rosemead, concerns related to them becoming a non-conforming use and what would be allowed moving forward. So based on the comments we received during that draft period, we are recommending some changes to the draft general plan and specific plan. And the first area of change is along Maida Avenue. Maida Avenue is a cul-de-sac that is south of Hermosa and north of Las Tunas. It's the first north-south street east of Rosemead Boulevard. The area is presently designated low-density residential, The draft general plan looked at increasing that to mixed-use specific plan. In order to protect that the single-family character of that cul-de-sac, staff is recommending keeping or retaining the low-density residential designation on MIDA. There are a number of similar changes that I'm going to go through as well. As part of the general plan process, staff had recommended increasing the designation for some single-family or low-density residential properties that were on cul-de-sacs or flag lots and tiered lots. Based on the comments we got from the public during the draft period, we're now changing our recommendation, and that is to keep the area low-density residential. So again, staff is recommending to keep the existing designation of low-density on those properties in order to protect the single-family character. So that goes for the area along near and adjacent to Longden and Temple City, down at Sultana and Sereno and Rose Glen, and then over at Danbury, Wildflower, and Fargo. The staff is changing its recommendation to protect the single-family character of those areas. In addition, the area along Temple City Boulevard between Garibaldi and Woodruff and between Workman and Live Oak, those areas are presently designated high-density residential. We had previously recommended designation of mixed use in that area. However, we're now recommending that we retain the existing high-density residential designation so that we can focus growth on the downtown and away from the residential areas. We're also recommending some changes to the Crossroads specific plan. These are based on public comment. We're recommending a new policy that talks about developing a diversity of businesses in the specific plan area. Requiring additional step backs on the upper stories of buildings to help reduce the size and impact and mass of the structures. Adding a policy that very clearly states that it's not the intent of the city to take private property through eminent domain. And then to deal with concerns regarding the HAT to specify, give more information about how non-conforming uses would be handled in the specific plan. Through the process, we also, as staff, found some things that needed to be added to the specific plan. So there's kind of a potpourri of issues here. We realized that there were no, for instance, no requirements regarding guest parking. So we've added that into the specific plan. We recommended that a CUP be required for any business open after midnight. Any new house has to follow the R1 code, which is standard in our zoning code. We realized we didn't have landscape standards for at-grade parking, that we wanted to prohibit balconies on elevations that face residential streets. So these are a number of different things that we added to the specific plan, realizing that they were not addressed. There were also some issues regarding there were no minimum widths for balconies. And then in talking with the Sheriff's Department, we realized that we needed to include something about notifying new residents about the existing helipad there and the noise sources, and then make sure that we plan for the helipad flight path. So those are all items that we're recommending be added to the specific plan. After the GPAC met in October, we heard from some residents on Fiesta in Bisbee regarding the changes that are being proposed there. So I wanted to call those out specifically. The existing designation in that area is low-density residential along Lower Azusa, along Fiesta, and along Bisbee. On the east side of Temple City Boulevard, there's some multifamily, and on the north side of Gidley, there's some industrial designations. When the residents of that area saw the proposal to change all that to mixed use, they expressed concerns about eminent domain. They expressed concerns that if they owned a single-family house, and now their house was non-conforming, legally non-conforming, they couldn't do an addition to their house, and there was some concern about that. And then there were concerns if their neighbor wanted to build a commercial facility next to them, that might create some nuisance-type conditions. So they expressed those issues at the Planning Commission meeting and before the Planning Commission meeting, and so we recommended 5 things to the Planning Commission, and these are options that the council could take action on tonight. The first is to just retain the existing general plan designation of low-density residential. Another option would be to change the designation to commercial. You could also change the designation to medium-density or high-density residential. What staff and the Planning Commission is recommending is to modify the definition of the mixed-use designation. So to keep the mixed-use designation, but modify what mixed use is, and that would be to include single-family and multifamily uses. So what that would do is is it would say if you own a single-family house in this area, you're not a non-conforming use. You're still conforming. You could still do an addition. You could build a whole new house. So that's the recommendation of both staff and the Planning Commission. Lastly, you could include a policy in the land use element that allows for expansion of single-family houses and non-residentially designated areas. So,
May I ask a question about that? So does that apply to only the mixed-use designation in that area or all over the city?
the way that it's written in the in staff's proposal is that it calls out, it allows for a mixed-use designation to be applied in the zoning code update that allows for single family. So for instance, it would allow for a mixed-use designation in some areas of the city that allows for single family, and it would allow a mixed-use designation in other areas of the city that do allow for single family.
So in this recommendation, this only applies to the area in discussion around Bisbee and Fiesta, the mixed use? Because there's other areas being proposed for mixed use. So is the legally non-conforming clause or provision, or whatever you call it, is that applicable to other proposed mixed-use areas or only here?
If it's okay, let me go back and read what we exactly wrote, and let me come back to that in just a few minutes.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Also at the Planning Commission meeting, we received comment from the HAT, and this was regarding some of the changes we had proposed about non-conforming uses and non-conforming signs. We're recommending now 4 changes, and the Planning Commission has recommended these as well. One is to confirm that existing CUPs are transferable to future tenants. The second is to provide clarification about what improvements can be made on non-conforming uses. The third is clarifying that we don't require uniform architectural style. And the fourth is to allow for some improvements to legally non-conforming signs. With that, staff has been working with the General Plan Advisory Committee now for more than 3 years. We've been working with the community at a number of different occasions. We've tried to address the concerns that we've heard from the community throughout the whole process. We've brought the draft general plan, specific plan, and EIR to the community. We've outlined the comments that we've heard, and we've done our best to try to address those concerns. So with that, staff recommends certifying the final environmental impact report, adopting the mid-century general plan, the Crossroads specific plan, and directing staff to file a notice of determination with the county.
Thank you. Councilmember Yu, do you have any questions?
No, I thought it was very nicely done, and I really appreciate the process that it went through. That is with a lot of detailed outreaching, and I really appreciate the work of our consultant and all the GPAC members. I think it's a great effort, and we, especially the fact that we have actually proposed something and hearing the comments and coming back and proposing ways to mitigate or really following what the community's desires are. So I think it's a great work.
Councilmember Moore?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem?
No questions for now.
Councilmember Fish?
I'd just like to thank everybody that's involved. This has been a really long process, and I'm very, very happy that the community has gotten involved in this, and that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Chavez?
No questions at this time.
I too would just like to thank the GPAC and staff and everyone involved. Scott, you had a question?
If
Yes.
the mayor likes, I can answer Councilman Mann's
Sure.
question. So it's on the recommendation from the Planning Commission and from staff is to modify the mixed-use designation to read, in certain transitional areas, such as areas adjacent to Hidley Street, Fiesta Avenue, and Bisbee Street, single-family and multifamily uses are allowed.
So I would interpret it as that only being applicable to that specific area.
That's correct.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Wait, read that again?
In certain transitional areas, such as areas adjacent to Gidley Street, Fiesta Avenue, and Bisbee Street, single-family and multifamily uses are allowed.
Well, see,
Such
I hear
as.
that as a different way.
Right.
I hear that could be applicable
Because
to
it's
other
such
areas
as.
that are similar
Yes.
to that.
That is true, and I think we'll see a refinement of that as we go to the zoning code update. What we may find in the zoning code is that the general plan may have, for instance, two types of mixed use, regular mixed use and specific plan mixed use. As we go through the zoning code update, we may adopted more types of mixed use, one specific to transitional areas, one specific to the downtown, one specific to the Crossroads specific plan. So that's the area where we really get into the weeds and figure out how the development regulations should be modified for these different areas of the city.
And when does that occur?
That's the next step. So after we get closure on the general plan and specific plan, presumably next year, we would start with the zoning code update.
And that's about a 2-year process, or?
Hopefully, we're aiming for a year. It may go longer, but the hope is a year.
Mr. Greenman, on the zoning code update, are you going to be doing it sections at a time or chapters at a time, or you're not going to wait for the 2-year to publish an update?
We haven't sit down to figure out the process yet. We do have Placeworks here, and they've done other zoning code updates as well. We haven't finalized the process, but we won't just drop a 400-page document on the community and expect them to understand it. It will be an iterative process.
And in addition to, if you see what we're, as I gave in my introductory comments as well, we're keeping the character of much of the city the same. And where we're going to have some challenges in the zoning code update will be with those transitional things. So that's why we'll stage it in a way that it's coming to you so you see what, depending on what you approve tonight or in the future with the general plan, you'll have the sense of what these guiding principles are and what the big 40,000-foot level kind of policy decision of the council is, and we'll try to find, and there's these nuances that are there that are a little bit of those bumps in the road. So we'll figure those out together, and we won't dump 400 pages and say, here you go. It'll be an iterative process as well.
So if I may, Mayor, related to that specific issue, it would be similar, so when we get to the housing element update, it would be similar to one of the sections in the Crossroads specific plan that has the neighborhood transition districts between sort of the mixed use into the residential, where we've outlined specific sort of design setbacks, densities, et cetera.
Yes.
So then, I guess the proposed recommendation would allow for the flexibility of that being developed at a later time.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
No, thank you.
I'd like to open up the public hearing, and I am going to call John Ritter.
Can I request that my wife speak first, because I want to refer to some material?
Sure.
she has?
You are Michelle? Michelle. Welcome, Michelle.
Hello, thank you for your time this evening. I presented a packet this evening with, first and foremost, a petition against the rezoning of Fiesta, Bisbee, and Gidley. The community is completely against this. This is a residential area that our home specifically has been in the communities for 71 years. It's been a one-family home for 71 years. There's other neighbors that have been there equally as long, and we would like to keep it our nice little Temple City community. In the meetings, well, first off, we didn't know about any of this until we were given a flyer at the beginning of November, and to find out that there were 10 meetings prior to any of our knowledge of going. So there were 10 meetings that have happened with things moving forward that the community had no idea that was even transpiring. So that was
So you're saying you had no notice until
October.
2 days ago?
October. Our first letter that we received was October 5th.
And who was that letter from?
It was from the city of Temple City. And it was mailed to the owner of the property, which is my father-in-law, who does not live local. And I would have thought that the letters would also have gone to the resident at the home itself, but that didn't happen. So
Do you rent there?
Yes, we do. In the meeting in November, we were talking about environmental impact of what's going on in the community and changing it to commercial and so on and so forth to mixed use. The first picture is this evening. It's just before we got here. The streets have been painted with red zones, and we have Supreme Investment students that are parking up and down our street that are blocking the red zones. We've called, they've been ticketed, but in the second packet, there's other pictures of just the daily grind that we go through for having a business or businesses within a residential community. And our concerns are if you are trying to change that to make it a mixed use or increase the density of the population, it's just going to become more and more of a problem. It takes me 5 minutes at a minimum to turn left from Bisbee to Temple City Boulevard at 6:45 in the morning. And that's not to mention the hour-and-a-half commute to get to Sherman Oaks. So from the get-go,
You
from
don't
my...
blame us for that.
No, I don't. But I'm just
Wanna
saying
make
that, no, just the struggles from immediately from my driveway to my office is just a constant challenge. So adding another 6,000 people in the next, couple of years is going to make that even more challenging. Another item that in the packet
Do you live across the
is,
street from the commercial,
no,
or you live on inside?
we're on the inside.
Okay,
We're on Bisbee directly.
thank you.
And another thing is that with all the recent repavings of the community, our street has been neglected and passed over. We've brought that to the attention. There's pictures in our pamphlet of that as well. And then also, again, the environmental impact of what's going to be going on. There's more pictures of down at the railroad track near the new commercial building that's down there with graffiti and the homeless that are down there. When my neighbor and I were passing out these, we walked around to our community and handed out flyers to our neighbors so they knew that this is going on, because if I didn't know, they don't know. And if it's been going on for 4 years and we're just finding out about it, that's, anyways. When we were walking around handing out the flyers, we came across our own little incident with a transient coming running up to us with his bag full of clothes and throwing them at us. And we're hiding in people's front porches because, we don't feel safe. Adding more people is just going to bring problems like that to the community.
Michelle, your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry I let you go over a minute. I was reading the petition. Sorry. If I could just ask everyone in the audience to just not applaud, it would be very much appreciated. Thank you. And we do have our lovely sheriff here, Ed Chen, who will reinforce that rule. So, I hate to make rules, but just want to remind everyone that some people are going to be for this and some against, and we respect everyone's opinion. So, thank you, Michelle. Would you like to? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, hi, good evening,
John?
and thank you for your time. I just wanted to kind of reiterate what my wife Michelle was talking about in regards to specifically Bisbee and Fiesta. Bisbee and Fiesta is primarily a single-family residential neighborhood. I think there is, if I'm not mistaken, one multifamily that is on Bisbee and Fiesta. Obviously, across Temple City Boulevard to the east side, you have obviously more residential. In addition to that, this neighborhood is primarily owner-occupied residents. Again, a lot of long-term residents. So we actually would like to, as there's been concessions made to other neighborhoods in regards to keeping this as a, the single family, the designation of the low density residential, and basically keep the zoning at least for our street, which, to be honest with you, it doesn't make sense that there would be a mixed use or commercial on that street anyway, because it's not a major, thoroughfare. So I would like to request that we keep that currently as it's zoned as low density residential. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Freud?
Hello. I'm also a resident on Bisbee, just a couple doors down from John and Michelle. And
Like Michelle stated, I additionally was not aware of the previous 10 meetings that were hosted. The only reason that was brought to my attention is because we have great neighbors like John and Michelle who are keeping an eye out for the neighborhood. And it was her and I who walked the street to get the signatures that we could and take the photos that were given to you tonight. The graffiti that is very clear and the trash that's piled up on the tracks, I called on that the first day I saw it happen because the transients were across the street on the opposite side and they started a fire a couple months back. One evening, fire trucks, the street was lined. So when I saw them taking over the opposite side, I called and I said, I just want to bring this to your attention, let you know what's happening before it gets out of control. The response I was given was, well, if you see a fire, just call 911. It was brushed off like nothing.
Who did you
And
call?
I called the sheriff's station. And the next day it doubled in size. The day after that, it was even worse. And we live on the main boulevard. We're the corner house. And those transients walk the street all day long, every single day. And one of our trash cans was stolen. Slowly but surely, things keep disappearing and things keep happening. Our response times are already horrible, especially at that end of the city. And if another 6,000 people get added in, what is that response time going to be? Our house was broken into, and we waited 3 hours for the sheriff to come, and they did a 10-minute walkthrough and left. Like, they brushed it off like it was no big deal.
Where is the number 6,000 coming from?
Maybe not 6,000, 4,000 to 5,000, the new incoming residents that you want to bring with
I
the,
believe it was 10 years with them.
So
But
within
that's
10
the
years.
entire city.
Yeah, that's,
Temple City is covered by sheriff.
And-
Are we not?
Do you own or rent?
We own.
Okay. And you said you never got a notice.
No, never had a notice.
And you live on the corner of Bisbee and Temple City?
Bisbee and Temple City Boulevard. We have a huge dip in the boulevard that when the street was repaved, there's a huge dip that we called and we asked the city about. Every single time a truck drives by, it shakes the house. The whole house. Windows rattle, our friends and family question what's going on. It's ridiculous. You mentioned that you want to keep much of the city the same, but at this end of the city, past Lower Azusa is forgotten about. As
Sarah,
the
you
woman
have about 5
posting-
seconds.
As the woman who mentioned posting the Camellia Festival sign said, Lower Azusa doesn't get advertised. That's clear in the graffiti in our streets. We don't get advertisement of any kind, including these type of meetings.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call Carl Bloom.
Excuse me. Carl Bloom, 6224 Hart Avenue. I'd just like to commend staff, consultants, planning commission, and I think in this case, having a citizens advisory committee guiding the beginning of this thing, I think was very important. I understand these individual issues that people may have, but I would like to encourage you, this has been 30 years since the last general plan update. I think this is a well-thought-out movement, moving the city forward. So I would urge you to take action and approve the recommendations before you tonight.
Thank you, Carl. Betty Kwan.
Good evening, Betty Kwan, 9238 Live Oak Avenue, Temple City, California. I'm on the General Plan Advisory Committee as a committee member. I guess I'm just very happy that we've achieved this progress to this point. And maybe let me just move this down. And also, I would like to thank Madam Mayor and the City Council, Mr. Reimers, Mr. Forbes, Mr. Tesher, and of course, the GPAC Committee. I guess I'll just repeat what I said because I'm just really happy that we have achieved and progressed to this point.
And thank you, everyone who voiced their opinions and voiced their concerns and basically participated in this whole progress and this whole process. And hopefully we can continue to work with everyone, no matter which section or area or neighborhood of the city. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, Betty, the time you've spent on the committee.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome.
Steve Stafford?
Mayor Sternquist, Mayor Pro Tempore Mann, council members, city staff. I've seen the graffiti that she's talking about, and I think what needs to be done now is I've talked to El Monte because it all started with Crown City Plating is, and that's an eyesore right now because of the contamination. And they just keep, El Monte keeps dragging their feet. What I wish could happen is for the city to send a letter of intent or an MOU asking them to remove the graffiti that is a nuisance to our community. They got gang members hanging out there. You got chances that those homeless people could tell us who those people are doing the graffiti because it's happening in their area. Some of it's in El Monte and a little bit of it's in Temple City.
Steve, do you want to
We need to
address the issue on Bisbee in particular
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
general plan,
Yeah.
not the graffiti?
Yeah, I know.
I know it's part of
That's
your
part of where
feelings,
this
but-
graffiti she's talking about. And it's gone on there a long time. 10 years is too long. We need to have Brian send a letter of intent that remove the graffiti, otherwise we're gonna remove it and we're gonna bill you. And get your police out there to deal with your problem. Amani's a very slow city when it comes to dealing with their problems. When my dad was alive, I kept seeing it. I called all the time, asked them to get the police there to take a report and investigate it. They just dragged their feet. And it all started with El Monte in their area where Clayton used to be, where Crown City Plating is. And now it's moving north. We need to put an end to it. They know who probably some of these gang members are. If I had a computer where I had the sheriff's technology, I could probably figure out who it is. They're just dragging their feet. They have a new code enforcement guy, and it needs to be done. I don't think that it can go on any longer. I've seen some things recently nearby there that it's getting worse. And the homeless people, some of those people are in El Monte, and some are in Temple City. I talked to El Monte Police, and their community officer was aware of this, was asked to call me, he never did. Another thing, they're dragging their feet onto the homeless in their area. I know where the borders are there. Most of them are in El Monte. And it certainly needs to be dealt with. I'm aware of the fire that you talked about. And it's going to keep happening there. They set campfires. When it gets cold, the fires go up because they're setting campfires. They get away, the winds take them like tonight, and you have a fire. And it takes a couple of fire engines, sometimes 3, depending on where the fire starts. And this whole thing down there needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. His last call for public comment. Anyone else? Betty?
I forgot to thank someone, too. Betty Kwan, part of the GPAC committee. I would also like to thank you, PlaceWorks consultant, Mr. Tesher. I think I forgot him, so I'm going to,
Okay.
if I said it, I'm going to say it again. So
Thank you.
Thank you, PlaceWorks, Mr. Tesher.
Thank you.
And sheriffs, too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close public comment. I'm going to start on this end. Councilmember Chavez?
Well, I guess in general, I have nothing more to add to the discussion we had tonight. It seems like the focus of our public hearing has been, at least we've heard on the Bisbee area. But in listening to the concerns of the residents who did come, and I do thank you for coming and expressing your opinion, certainly. And it seems to me that most of the problems that you have brought up, I don't see how that is connected to the proposed change in that particular area. And in fact, I would say that many of the problems can be solved, or at least taken care of, no matter which direction we go in. You mentioned homeless. We know that that is a problem, not only where you guys, but it's everywhere. And certainly we've been dealing with that on a large basis. And, you know, hopefully that issue will be resolved, not only in your area, but every area that we have. The graffiti, again, I'm looking at the photos. I know that it appears to me that the graffiti is on property that is in El Monte. Apparently you have to look at it on your way home, which isn't too pleasing, but there is, correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't have graffiti on your block or anything like that, correct? Okay, so, street maintenance problems, of course, those things need to be resolved. I don't have an answer for you right now why it appears to me, based on the information I have, that area is almost like been treated as a stepchild, and maybe it's time that we need to look at that a little bit differently as we have throughout the area. Frankly, I think that given the changes that have been recommended by the staff, that those types of changes hopefully will bring about doing those types of things, or taking care of those things that you have been brought up. At least it would appear to me that it would. But, you know, time will tell, I guess, on that. But I agree with you. I recall when I was mayor last and we took a visit down in that area. We didn't specifically travel on Bisbee or Fiesta, but we took a tour of the commercial area there. And it is an older area, and you know, a lot of people don't realize that it's there, that it is part of Temple City. And there are things that we definitely need to take a look at in that area. And certainly the things that you brought up are legitimate concerns, and I agree with you that those are things that we would need to look into. And thank you for bringing those to our attention if they haven't already been. As far as what the sheriff does and things like that, I know our city manager takes good notes, and whenever there's a perception that things aren't being done by other agencies, we certainly will mention that to them and make sure that those things are taken care of in a timely manner, because no one that lives in Temple City should have to go through some of the things that you've brought up. And certainly, no matter where we're not that big of a city. We're 4 square miles, and the sheriff department is not that far from you, and no other things. Well, we're not making it bigger.
That's not up to-
We're not
yeah.
I wish we could make the city bigger, but we're not taking any land and making it bigger. But, you know, we're trying to hopefully change things so that, for the improvement of the city. But, you know, obviously you have a different opinion about that, and I respect that, so that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Councilmember Fish?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank the residents for coming. I do want you to know that I do actually live over by La Rosa School, and my son actually looked at buying a house on Bixby, and I always thought it was kind of a unique area because it's not consistent with really anything in Temple City. It's residential, it's commercial, it's storage, it's just kind of odd. I understand your concerns. Please remember that, especially with any kind of the problems with the roads, with, you mentioned that there was a hole in the ground that's, please,
I mean, honestly, we called and the guy came out. He was supposed to come back.
okay, you know what?
Just, it's not an interactive thing. It's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Mr.
I
Ronnie,
just wanted
rewind.
to say that, like, I agree with Councilmember Chavez. You know, we have taken notes. We do want you to let us know what's going on in that area. Like I said, that is my area. I mean, I'm pretty close to it. But I do want you to know that one of the reasons that we're doing these plans is because we're trying to improve the areas. You know, that area, it is an older area. There, you know, and like I said, and I'm familiar with it because I looked at some property on that, and there were some shacks And then there were some really nice homes. It's very inconsistent. Each property is completely different. Oops, sorry, it's nothing like in Temple City where there's just houses. Then right across the street you have nothing but commercial, which I think is kind of strange anyway. But I would like I said, I would like for you to continue to keep us aware of what's going on in that neighborhood, whether you contact a council member, our city manager, our city clerk, and let us know what the problems are. And if you don't get an answer, then keep calling, or come to a meeting and speak and tell us. You know, we're not perfect. Sometimes we do drop the ball. We have a lot going on in Temple City. We have a lot of different areas and a lot of different residents with a lot of different concerns. So, like I said, you know, this is your city. We want you to be happy. We want to do whatever we can to improve it. I do agree with Councilmember Chavez that I don't see the general plan changing that. I would hope it would. I would hope it would improve it. Like I said, I can't predict the future. And as far as, you have to understand, with the additional, let's say, 6 or 10,000 people that we you know, that will move into this, this is over a 10, 15, 20, 30-year time. And it's going to happen, whether we do this plan or not. I mean, I would love to say that we could keep Temple City in a bubble and not let anything from the outside affect us, as far as homeless, but we can't. We can't. All we can do is be prepared. We can be prepared to face it with the best plan that we're capable of coming up with. So I just want to let you know that.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I also want to acknowledge the residents who have come to speak about those issues down at Bisbee and Fiesta. I used to live closer to the western boundary of Temple City near Burton, where the power lines go through, and having lived there for a short period of time, I can also relate to some of the issues that you've dealt with. Maybe not the graffiti, but certainly we've had issues with transients, homeless, meandering through that area. And it's always been a challenge for us dealing with areas along our boundaries, because like Councilmember Fish said, we don't live in a bubble. We try our best to work with adjoining agencies, whether it's the unincorporated county area, City of San Gabriel, City of Almonte, Rosemead, etc. So those areas are tough, and sometimes things trickle over, and sometimes there's just not a perfect solution. But I agree with Councilmember Chavez that those issues, it seems like they're much more related to the public safety side of things. And if you don't know, we do have a monthly meeting with our sheriff's department where we do go over some of the issues that are happening in our city. And it's also an opportunity for you to kind of interact with our law enforcement directly, as well as city council usually attends as well. And it's a great platform for you to continue to voice those concerns. As Councilmember Chavez says, we are very well aware of these issues. These are regional issues, not limited to us. And so hopefully over time we find ways to address that. Now, regarding the general plan, because sometimes we kind of get off on a slight tangent with these issues. With the general plan, I do see and understand your point, because even if you look at a satellite image of that area, or you just walk through that or drive through that area, that is a small, I mean, it is residential, like you mentioned, along Bisbee, with the exception of that shopping center, and then you have that industrial sort of strip sort of down by the south side adjoining the channel. So it is, like Councilmember Fish said, a very unique area, and I agree with her in that the proposed changes that we're making at an area is intended to try to improve it. So if you had an area that potentially gets either redeveloped piece by piece, there is the opportunity for areas to get better slowly. I mean, we've seen that in certain parts of our city as well, mostly towards sort of like the Rosemead and Las Tunas corner. And I do like the staff recommendation for giving you that flexibility so that you don't run into those legal issues. You don't have non-conforming uses. You're free to continue to make additions if you want to rebuild your house, things of that nature, to keep it the same. Like you said, many of this area, according to Mr. Ritter, is owner occupied. So the power is yours. The city does not have the power to force you to turn it into a mixed-use development. You have that right, and we cannot take that away. So I think staff's recommendation, as well as what's being presented to the Planning Commission, to me seems like a reasonable compromise on this issue. One of the things that, to kind of maybe switch gears a little, one of the things that I think kind of got thrown under the radar is the draft Crossroads specific plan is a major part of this update. And as Mr. Reimers has mentioned, that addresses the corner of Las Tunas and Rosemead. And I really think that's one of the greatest areas of potential for us. We've received many complaints as well as stories from residents about the Kmart Plaza in general. I think a lot of us here on council agree that it's overdue for a revitalization of some sorts. And I think the current draft plan correctly identifies all these issues. And having the parameters outlined in that specific plan, I think, makes it very clear to anyone who may want to take on that task of revitalizing that corner. It sets boundaries. You know, we don't want 7, 8-story high-rises in that area. You know, we're not Alhambra. So, if you drive down Main Street and you see I think a lot of people come up to me and they say, hey, why are we proposing to turn certain areas of Temple City into like downtown Alhambra? You know, you have the sort of, I don't want to dig on them too much, but you have that sort of vertical, blocky buildings kind of right up against Main Street. If you look at the draft specific plan, I really appreciate what the GPAC, Placeworks, and staff has done in sort of outlining the setbacks. Like Mr. Reimers mentioned the 300-foot setback from Rosemead. I think that's very appropriate. I mean, that creates sort of the balance between, between having these large blocky buildings right up against our streets and kind of allowing more of a opportunity to develop certain aesthetics that's complementary of our character. And so, we're not expecting to see that type of a development along that area. And it's also a great opportunity because we really are built out, as staff has mentioned, and we don't have large plots of land that someone can just pick up and say, oh, we're going to create the new Westfield Shopping Center. And we don't, we don't want the next Westfield Shopping Center. And I think having that specific plan really sets the boundaries for what we want to see in the future. And from a more personal level, I think maybe I'm in the unique position to say that I could hope to see Temple City in 2050. Because that's
The rest of us are old? Is that what he just said?
I did not say that.
Yeah, we'll be there too. Yeah.
Well, I'm saying that as someone who grew up here.
Mr. Chen,
Yeah.
you can remove him.
I knew I was going to catch flack for that one. But I grew up here. My son is 2 years old, and to be able to kind of see a blueprint for the future is really special to me because it's something that I can really tell him as he's growing up. It's like, hey, look, this is what Temple City is all about. This is how the city, the community came together and collaboratively tried to come up with a plan that works to the central identity of who we are as Temple Cityans. And like if you look at the diagram, it's still mostly single-family residential neighborhoods. We have not really changed that. And in fact, one of the lines in the in the draft plan that kind of jumped out at me was, it said 90, I think it was 94% of our residential areas are low density, single family homes. So we've retained that character. We haven't said, let's just take large swaths of this and start building apartments and condos. We try to concentrate growth in the appropriate sectors, and if you lived here long enough, you know where those sectors are. So I just want to thank the GPAC committee, and I started out in the GPAC, so it has another special place in my heart. So I want to thank my fellow committee members and residents for participating in this process, 3 years in the making. PlaceWorks, Mr. Woody Tesher for his leadership and technical guidance, as well as our entire planning staff, Mr. Forbes and Mr. Reimers and the rest. Quite an accomplishment, and I thank you all for your hard work, and this milestone means a lot to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Yu.
Yes, Madam Mayor, and I appreciate the chance to speak. I second everything that's been said so far. It's truly a monumental step in history, the city's history. I sat on the Plan Commission for quite some time. I think along with former Mayor Bloom, we were there for about 5-6 years. And one constant complaint when we were sitting as Plan Commissioners were that, how come the zoning law is such and such, and there are a lot of disagreements as to how we should apply the law. And our standard answer back then was that, well, someday we're going to update our general plan, and please participate. So now's the chance. We all work together as a city over the course of 3 years, and appreciate PlaceWorks and staff, and in particular all the volunteers and GPAC members and all the community members that have shown up in our community hearings. So this is truly a reflection of community's work, and also thanked my fellow council member, Mayor Pro Tem Min, as the former chairman. However, I understand and do appreciate the residents who came out and speak tonight of your concerns. I personally, if I had my ruthers, I would rather see your area remain as low-density residential. But I think we, just like Ms. Reamer had and also Mr. Cook started, we're not really looking at zoning law today. We're really planning for the future of Temple City. I think it's a reasonable compromise what staff and PlaceWorks have recommended, that we modify the definition of mixed-use destination to allow for single and multifamily uses. I remember one of the issue with non-conforming uses back then was that you really cannot add to your house. You cannot really fix it up, or if your roof is leaking, you can apply for a permit to patch up the roof, but you cannot really improve on your house. So I think what staff had recommended is a nice compromise. It allows you to retain and maintain and add to your house. And the other one that I just want to point out to, when I was sitting in the chair of the Plan Commission, there are oftentimes we get requests, could you upzone my house? It's an R1, my next door neighbor is an R3, their property value is twice as mine. Can you upzone my property? And I just want to bring that to the residents' attention. While this may not be exactly what you want, but zoning it or potentially zoning it to mixed use may not actually impact the property value. As a matter of fact, it probably would raise it up. Whenever we upzone something, the property actually gains value. The other part I want to address is to Mayor Pro Tem's point of the Crossroads specific plan. I remember sitting on the chair of the City Council member, we often have residents asking us, as city council, what are you doing to improve Temple City? What can you do to make our city more vital? What can you do to make our city be more attractive to development? As somebody pointed out before, this is not a way that we're going to buy up your property. As a matter of fact, the city does not have that kind of finance. However, what we can do as a city is to create some tools that will encourage the right developers, the right kind of, or right sizing of development to come to the city. And I think this is exactly what the general plan, exactly what the Crossroads plan has done. And I want to comment on staff and all of you who are involved. Because what's in front of us right now is a plan that works, is a plan that is now have the environmental clearance, environmental certification. It enables a developer coming to Temple City, looking at a plan and said, oh yeah, this is what will be approved. And not only that, it would save the developer time and money to have to go through environmental clearance again. And a development like the Kmart site is going to require another year and a half easily, environmental clearance. And so having the plan in front of us helps us, gives Temple City the flexibility and the ability to be quick on our feet to respond to any developer's request. So it is not just a piece of paper that we've produced. What we have produced is a tool that really helps Temple City to be able to manage and select our future. So I am very happy we've finally come to a conclusion of the work. And I think and I appreciate all the changes that have been made. I think it's a nice addition. I'm looking forward and I'm hopeful that I'll be around to see the completion of all the construction. So I'm very happy we're here.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate all of council's comments. I'm very familiar with Bisbee, the street, and Supreme Investment. I take a class there twice a week, and I leave at 10:45. And it takes me 5 minutes at that time to turn left onto Temple City Boulevard. It's a very busy street. It is unique in the sense that you do have the commercial or industrial buildings across the street, and as you wrap around the corner, then it looks more residential. And having lived in a home that was R2 medium density, my whole block was downzoned, and every resident there wanted to be downzoned. Now, this was 25 years ago, but they wanted to maintain the single-family residential home. That they would not have wanted mixed use or even apartments on our street, even though just south of us, they're there. With that being said, nothing is ever going to be perfect for every street, and I know you're aware of that. But I think that the GPAC, if this was done over a 3-year process with much citizen input, staff input, and the things that I am concerned about, though, is like your reaction to that statement, in the sense that some of the things I wrote down, I appreciate the work that they did. I understand the difficulty that you're having it and some of the residents that signed. But I have a very difficult time understanding why you weren't notified. And I have to tell you something. If you got one notice, you probably did get notices before then, because they use the same master list that goes out. And I have to tell you, when I was, 30 years ago, and I don't mind saying I'm old, but 30 years ago when I was busy raising a family, had young kids, and, I'd get letters from the city. And I'm like, oh, this is a letter from the city, okay. I either put it aside, didn't really have a clue as to what the general plan was. And I was here in the city 30 years ago, but I didn't participate. I didn't even really look at those letters that came my way. I just didn't have an interest. And I hate to say that, but my focus was somewhere else until something really affected me. I wanted to build a home right next door to the house that I was. And then all of a sudden, I took an interest. I was figuring out what are zoning codes, and every letter that came from the city no longer went by the wayside. And so if indeed your neighborhood did not get 10 notifications for letters, then really that's a problem that we have that our city manager will definitely look into. I'm a little frustrated that you'd get one and not get many before, and maybe that's what happened with the letters. I don't know. But the other thing also is, you know, the street, having the dip in the street, those are things that I appreciate that you bring to our attention, because those are things that can easily be fixed, as Councilmember Fish said, and that is the city's responsibility to ensure that your streets are safe, that your cars can travel on them without getting flat tires, etc. The issue with the graffiti is I had seen it maybe a year ago, and it was really bad. But I don't really go that way that often, but I did recently because, of course, I was aware we were doing this and I wanted to take a look again at the area. And, you know, cities have a real badge of honor. When I go to other functions outside of our city and we talk to other council members, or I go to a mayor's breakfast that I recently went to with Eric Garcetti, and you know, people talk about their cities, and the first thing everybody says, oh my gosh, you know, I'm from El Monte and we're the best city, and then Temple City's mayor will stand up and say, well, no, you know, Temple City is the best mayor. So we all have bragging rights, and we're neighbors. So actually on Friday, I'm going to see the mayor of El Monte, and I'm going to take this to him, and I'm going to show him, and tell him, okay, you're the best city, but look what my neighbors have to, you know, my residents have to look at. And I think sometimes things as simple as our city manager calling up the city manager from the city of El Monte and saying, you know, look at this. Come on, we're good neighbors here. We put a Home Depot in there. You get most of the tax, and you know, we get a small portion. Work with us. So I think those things are pretty much easy fixes, and they're common sense. What I would say to you is, though, you do have the flexibility to keep your properties and your neighborhood, you know, R1. And if indeed your community, the neighbors, all the ones that signed the form, that's what they want to do, then you're ensured that your neighborhood's going to stay the same. So I want you to take that away, as it's not everything you want, but it is a start. Okay, and I want to thank you so much, because you know, it's difficult to come when you don't know the process of city government. There's a lot to learn. I mean, and trust me, I was at a point in my life where it just was not a priority till it affected me personally. So thank you so much for coming. Everybody has said, you know, thank yous to the GPAC and everybody involved. But this is really what the democratic process is. Trying to make the city wonderful using a democratic process involving the city, consultants who are experts, people who care, because they're your residents too. So with that said, I think we can call for a motion if you'd like.
Mayor, before you call a motion, I just want to make sure, since you received some documents late today, that we recite that you have in fact received them and they are part of the record. You received an email from Rick Quo, I hope I said that right, entitled General Plan and Specific Plan Comments. It was addressed to the City Council, but I believe it was emailed to Ms. Nunez, and that will be part of the record. And you also received the petition to stop the rezoning for Bisbee Street, Fiesta Avenue, Temple City, California, as part of the mid-century general plan, I believe the speakers referred to earlier. And we have received, looks like, 3 different packages of photos, which the speakers also referred to, that will be part of your record of decision tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I just want to clarify something with the city attorney. The fact that we received the comment, it becomes part of the record, but because we received them after the public comments period had ended, I don't think we necessarily need to answer them, so we can still approve the the draft EIR the way it is.
Correct.
Without additional comments to it.
These items were not specifically pertained or phrased as comments to the EIR. That public comment period has closed.
Right.
These are simply documents that become part of your overall record of decision. They are now a matter of public record and are public documents that people could ask for a copy of if they wanted to, and they just inform your decision.
Yes, thank you
You
for that
can proceed. Thank
clarification.
you.
Thank you.
Well,
William?
Madam Mayor, if I may have the pleasure of making a motion to adopt Resolution 17-5298, certifying the environmental impact report for the mid-century general plan update and the Crossroads specific plan, and adopting a mitigation monitoring and reporting program and findings of fact and statement of overriding considerations, and to adopt Resolution 17-5299, adopting the mid-century general plan update, including the recommended changes in the attachments, and to introduce for first reading by title only and waive further reading of ordinance number 17-1029, adopting the Crossroads specific plan, including the recommended changes in the attachments, and adding Part 6 to Title 9, Chapter 1, Article N of the Temple City Municipal Code, to waive further reading of Ordinance 17-1029, to schedule the second reading of that ordinance for December 19th, 2017, and to direct staff to file a notice of determination with the LA County Recorder, and to receive the comments and petition that we received today.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay, any objections? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Fish?
Yes.
Councilmember Yu?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Man?
Yes.
Mayor Sternquist?
Yes. Okay, I'm going to ask our city clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 17-1029, an ordinance of the City Council of City of Temple City, California, adopting the Crossroads specific plan and adding Part 6 to Title 9, Chapter 1, Article N of the Temple City Municipal Code pertaining to the Crossroads specific plan.
Thank you. It has been asked if we take a 5-minute break. Yes. All right. I've lost all control. Okay, where are we? Number 9. Okay, we're reconvening as the city council. We move to number 9, unfinished business. Ordinance number 17-1030, authorizing the city of Temple City to enter into a joint powers agreement for Los Angeles Community Choice Energy, authorizing the implementation of a community choice aggregation program.
Mayor Sternquist, members of the council, is a continuation of the discussion that we had at our last meeting. Before you tonight is a draft ordinance taking the first step in the first reading to join the Joint Powers Authority of the Los Angeles County Joint Community Choice Energy Joint Powers Authority. Excuse me. There were several questions that were asked at the last meeting, and we tried to answer those as best we could in the staff report. A couple of them were really what was the impetus for this authority being created, and the enjoining documents from the county and through the JPA kind of spell some of those out. And the governing board really consists, and the motivation really consists of what was stated by the Board of Supervisors in September 27, 2016. They started this process identifying the benefits of two benefits. One, of looking for lower electricity rates, and 2, providing another option for community members to provide, to have greener alternatives. So alternative energy sources that were felt as they were maybe Southern California Edison wasn't moving fast enough. The other one was to talk about the weighted voting program, and the only way that's instituted is if the entire authority grants that weighting authority. So, as the JPA is written now, every member of the authority has an equal weight at the equal vote at the table, unless it is granted, and that will be important over the next years. As the staff report spells out, there's 3 stages of implementation. First, in January, the county facilities and unincorporated areas will be phased in, then local agencies, and then finally residents in about this time next year. And this is an opt-out program as well, if you remember. Residents can choose 60 days after when the switchover is made to opt out of that program. And the Edison bill will look the same. It will have all those, and it will have all the different disclaimers that spell that out. Additionally, it was asked, how many cities are joining in? And it looks like by the end of this month, there'll be at least 16 cities. There are 6 tonight, and that's why none of the members of the Joint Powers Authority, the interim executive director sends his apologies, but they are spread amongst 6 different cities tonight as well. So if you take what is...
cities?
No, sir. Pre-scheduled
Never.
cities.
Okay.
They ask their questions sooner.
Oh, I see.
But they will be here if requested at the second meeting on December 19th, if so requested. And they may be just here just as a matter of course, but if there's any additional questions that or concerns that are expressed. So taken in total, there's in some of the statistical analysis that you asked for was a little bit harder to grasp in terms. So what we did add in the staff report was the business plan that was approved by the California Public Utilities Commission. And that is no guarantee, and we've kind of stated that throughout. There's no guarantee in terms of savings on electric rates. But the business plan does spell out and does address some of the concerns that had been expressed about what Edison may be passing on in the future in terms of stranded cost. And it does try to incorporate that into their business plan. Is that a guarantee? Absolutely not. I don't think we as an agency should make that guarantee to anybody else as well. It strives to move towards that 5% savings rate, but is not a guarantee. What it does provide, what you can guarantee, is that that residents will have the choice of a portfolio that includes energy sources from alternative and solar, and a portfolio that is not just coal-based, and it provides, and from an environmentally conscious perspective, that is guaranteed, because that will be a level of the portfolio that the Joint Powers Authority will be buying. So those were some of the main questions that were asked. And if there's any other questions you may have. The other question was about the $10 million and why it's important to be an initial participant. In order for all the participants who join before the 6-month window, which expires December 27th, to participate in that funding, you have to be an initial participant. So afterwards, again, it's not determined how much the Joint Powers Authority would assess to new members, but that's why that deadline is there too. So with that, there's an ordinance before you for consideration to approve. We will actively monitor as what's happening. It gives us a good year to watch how the Joint Powers Authority operates. If there's any major concerns or red flags that come up, we have a year between now and when the residential customers would be coming on. Also, too, there was also some concerns expressed about, well, what will Edison do as this starts to roll out? Well, as you may or may not know, for Edison rates to go up, rates are segregated in different ways, from distribution to energy costs. Generally speaking, the energy costs are pass-through costs. So whatever those costs are, they're passed through directly with a certain amount of markup. But the bottom line is that they are reviewed by the CPUC, and they're approved by the CPUC, excuse me. One of the charges of the Joint Powers Authority, and something that we'll be watching as staff, is how closely is the JPA watching the rate cases that Edison brings forward, so that there is not some level of undue cost burden that's being shifted to the JPA, even though there is some allowances for that in the business plan, but there's not any undue cost that Edison is passing along to this authority or any others, to be that matter. So that's going to be a real task that we're going to be monitoring over the next few years if the council does decide to join the Joint Powers Authority. So with that, if any other questions you may have.
Does anyone have any questions? Tom?
No,
Are your questions answered?
not really, but I've already said my piece.
Okay,
I'll just wait for the comments later.
Okay.
Thanks.
Open public hearings. I believe we have one. Steve?
Mayor Sternquist, Mayor Pro Tem Mann, council members, staff. This is, every time we visit this item, it seems more cities join it, more cities are considering it. I think it's a good idea because it's going to allow other municipalities to sell power as well out of other areas. I've seen this, I've found information in other states where they did just this. And by the time it was all finished, and some states have cities where you have 4 choices for power, some only have 3, some have 5 choices in different states, and this is on the same model that these other states did. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's really good, and we need to get it started. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, close public hearing. Council comment. Tom?
I just want to thank staff for responding and trying to get the information that we had brought up, or through the questions we had brought up last time, but it seems like there's just a lot of stuff that is really just kind of unanswerable at this time. I understand after looking at the staff report that there is a certain amount of risk involved, but I suppose after looking at everything and weighing everything, at this time, it's kind of a no harm, no foul, I guess, is the way I would characterize it. To join it now, at least to get on the ground level, may be a benefit. It certainly is not going to be a detriment, although if we do wait, it could be a detriment to our residents and our commercial businesses. So I'm willing to take a chance on it. I'm confident that staff will monitor this very closely. I remember I was trying to look for it in the staff report or in some of the information, but I believe that there is an opportunity for the city, as being an initial participant, to be on the the board or have somebody sitting on the board.
That's correct.
But I also, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think I remember seeing that it can also be not only an elected official, but also a staff member as
Correct.
well.
And
And-
or appointed, it could be
Yeah,
appointed.
and I would hope that this JPA is run by people who are knowledgeable in these things rather than just politicians, because that'll make me feel more at ease. And so, so given that and the fact that I trust our staff to really keep a handle on this and to bring anything to our attention that we should consider in the future. And it does look like it's gonna take some time, probably at least a year to get this thing really going. So, at this point, I don't have much, problem with it, and I'm prepared to recommend that we move forward. Thank you.
Councilmember Yu?
I agree with what Councilmember Chavez said. I think with the additional staff analysis, I think it shows that we do have a little time to, this will allow us to participate, but yet still give us time to evaluate as details start developing. So I think I can support it.
Okay. Councilmember Fish?
Actually, I had, a lot of reservations, especially about the costs, but I do understand that, like Councilmember Chavez said, we really won't know until we find out how many cities are also on board. I think it's probably a good opportunity to get in at the ground level. I do think in the future, this is probably going to continue to happen, where there'll be more people selling energy, so I can support it.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I want to thank staff also for really bringing this back to us so soon, because it's kind of crunch time before we can, really formally join. And before at the last meeting, I had some reservations because of the weighted vote and how us being a small city,
Me too.
I didn't really understand how that provision may adversely affect us, especially when you consider that an entity as large as LA County is spearheading that group, and we don't want to be kind of like bullied around at the tables. So thank you, City Manager Cook, for really clarifying that provision, and I think that, I guess, gives me a bit more confidence about us joining this. And I agree with my fellow council members that have just spoken, and I'm also willing to recommend that we move forward with it.
Okay. I'm going to recommend it also, so I need a council motion.
Mayor Sternquist,
sorry.
I would make a motion to adopt ordinance number 17-1030, authorizing the city of Temple City to enter into a joint powers agreement for the Los Angeles Community Choice Energy, authorizing the implementation of a community choice aggregation program, and further that to direct staff to take the steps necessary to finalize this action.
Second?
Okay,
Hey.
motion.
Could I clarify that we're just introducing the ordinance tonight? So
I
to
don't know, the
be-
recommendation was not to introduce, but if that's what we need to do, then.
Should be, all ordinances need to be
Yeah, that's right, 'cause we need a
introduced.
second reading.
Yeah, wait for the reading, and then
Anyway,
we'll
I'm
come back.
just following directions.
I understand.
That's why you're
That's
here?
why I'm piping
That's
in.
why you're here? All right, so with that addendum, I would, that motion.
Okay, any objections? Okay, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Chavez?
Here, yes, here. Who's saying here? It's getting late.
Yes, here.
It's
Yes,
getting late.
here. It's yes, here.
Getting late and I'm getting old.
Councilmember Fish?
Yes.
Councilmember Yu?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Man?
Yes.
Mayor Sternquist?
Yes. Okay, we move to item 10, new business. None. Any communications?
No.
None? How about an update?
Mayor Sternquist, members of the council, thank you for tonight. Tonight was one of those monumental moments. I've been in local government for almost 20 years, gone through one other general plan process from start to finish. This will be my second, so thank you. Thank you to staff, Mr. Forbes, Mr. Reimers, Woody, everybody on the team. I think this is one of those also resume building moments for a lot of staff members as well. And so it's really significant. I think we went through a really good process to get there. So since I feel more comfortable expressing that after your decision tonight. So thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your support to give us the resources, time, and the substantial effort it takes to go through that process. So thank you very much. Lights on Temple City Friday. Give you just a couple quick little details. Friday from 5 to 9, snow, sledding, ice carving are just a few of the planned activities. The parade starts at 7 p.m. between Cloverly and Kaufman. Las Tunas will be closed for the parade from approximately 5 p.m. to about 8 p.m. And then the mayor will light up the tree. As we move into the new year, with this, we'll be having a special meeting on Friday related to looking at the mission statement, vision statement, and a few other things related to the strategic plan process as we develop. You made a major milestone related to that with the general plan tonight. So thank you so much. That's it for tonight, Mayor.
Okay. How about from our city attorney, Mr. Bale?
Nothing this evening.
Are you sure? Okay. Council reports regarding ad hoc or standing committee meetings. I think we have a exciting one on about Las Tunas, right?
Yes, I think.
Yes, Councilmember, you and I did meet last week for the Downtown Revitalization Standing Committee meeting. There were two matters on our agenda. One is we were presented with corridor beautification concepts. David Goodale, made a great presentation, gave us a lot of different options, and with staff, we reviewed those, and we should be having those come back to the full council, I believe, sometime in January. I think you'll be very happy with some of the concepts. Of course, it's exciting to think that we're going to keep moving forward, kind of consistent with what we did tonight, and that is to keep on moving the city forward. So, so that's more to come. We also discussed the entry monument concept, okay, that Mayor Sternquist had brought up a number of months ago, and looked at some preliminary designs as well for that. And so that will also be presented, I believe, at the same time to us as well. So, so very exciting things, and good things to follow, hopefully, for Las Tunas. Just want to make sure that we're all aware that before anybody starts spreading rumors, we're not changing the streetscapes, we're not changing the design of the streets, none of that
No
stuff.
plan C.
No plan C, no plan A, B,
No,
or C.
Back-in parking?
Yeah, we're keeping the roads the way they are.
Yes.
The beautification mainly on the sidewalks and
Yeah.
so.
Truly beautification, not
Yes.
changing. That's all I have on that.
Okay, Councilmember Fish, do you have anything?
Just wanted to, again, thank staff, the GPAC, and especially our residents for getting involved in our general plan and specific plan. It's not something that we take lightly, and it's not something that was done in a rush. It was many, many hours. And I think we can be very proud that we take this seriously, and then our residents are willing to participate in seeing how they want their city to look in the future, and that they would like to continue to live here. So I'd like to thank them, and that's about it.
Okay. William? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Lights on Temple City.
I'm sure you are with your little one.
Yes, and I also want to echo Councilmember Fish's comments. What I'm most proud of is the process that we all went through, and we can kind of look back and be able to say that we did it the right way, and we did it our way, and then we got input from our community and our residents, and really built it from the ground up. So yeah, congratulations to everyone who was involved. I also want to just make a brief comment on the new parking lot. I ride my bike there through that area quite often, and it's being used a lot.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised because I wasn't sure I mean, I wasn't fully confident that it was going to be used to that extent. I've even talked to our city manager, and he mentioned that staff and himself as well has observed a lot being even at capacity at certain times during the weekday, so completely full. So I'm really happy that it's being used. So it shows that, you know, we're not doing things in vain, and it's one piece of the puzzle that, you know, like Councilmember Chavez just talked about, the Las Tunas committee. I think all the pieces are starting to come together, and it's very exciting to really see that kind of come to fruition. That's all I have.
It is, thank you. And I just want to address the issue with even the people that sat up here and had difficulty with, you know, their street and maybe not so happy with what was going to take place there. They really were comfortable knowing that the residents were part of the process and that those residents came from all different areas and represented, you know, sections of the city from all over. And I think they were very comfortable knowing that. And even though they didn't exactly, you know, get what they wanted, they were comfortable with the process. So I agree with you that, you know, staff did a great job with our consultants working with the residents and over a 3-year period. That's a huge commitment. And just if we could follow up on all those issues, Brian, and, you know, I don't know, I assume it could be both. Maybe they got some, they, you know, went by the wayside, but whatever we
Right.
can do to alleviate that problem in the future would be appreciated. And let's see, I don't have anything else.
If you forgot.
Madam Mayor, may I
You
just
forgot.
add one little note
Sorry.
to comment? I know I said it, but I don't think I said it enough to make the emphasis enough in that when residents come to the city council and ask us, what are you doing about revitalizing Temple City? And what we've done tonight is really a very important tool. I mean, I said it before, but I felt so important that we need to say it again. You know, we are making ourselves competitive. If a developer comes to our city and you have a general plan, you have a specific plan that already been approved, and then you have the environmental documents ready to go, it put us so much more in a much more competitive. I would like to say we're a preferred city because we have the EIR, we have the specific plan done. So just want to put it out there so that folks know we have heard you and we're doing our job to try to make ourselves in a much better position for redevelopment. So.
Great, thank you. Anything?
Where are
Tom
we?
already?
No, you didn't come to me yet.
Oh,
Are we
I
on
thought
the
we went
council
to
items
you.
separate? No, I
She
did.
just kind of went from
I
really
did the
quickly.
I did the council reports, standing committee
You
meeting.
just blended them together?
I guess, I did.
Yeah.
I just have 2 real quick things.
Okay.
I apologize because when we were discussing the general plan, I did forget to thank everyone that was involved, and I want to express my thanks as well to the members of the GPAC and of course our consultants, our staff, but especially the community members who attended the workshops and all the meetings we had over the last few years. We couldn't have done it without them, and I hope that they realize that, as we've always tried to say on this council, is that all of us are part of this solution. We're all part of this whole thing. We get the easy part. We get up here and rely on all the information that is given to us and make those decisions, but we wouldn't be able to make those decisions without the input from all the community members and all the people who participated in it. So I want to thank you all for doing that. And just real briefly, that, you know, it reminds me of like when the individuals came tonight and they had issues with this, but sometimes when you address an issue and maybe it doesn't go your way, it opens up other avenues, other things. And I think tonight, especially the people from down in Fiesta and Bisbee, realize that, hey, there are people out there that will listen to us, and maybe we can solve some of these problems for them. And they would have never brought that to our attention maybe if this hadn't happened. So I'm always to think that there are always some good things that can happen, even from things that don't always work out for you. And then lastly, I just wanted to remind everybody that, you know, with everything that's in the news these days about harassment and things that are going on with people in Hollywood and also local officials and our government officials, Councilmember you and Mayor Pro Tem Mann and I did attend harassment training last week, or at least how to avoid harassment. I shouldn't say we learned how to harass. I know that Mayor Sternquist and Councilmember Fish had already attended such training down in the desert. So, you know, we are doing those things. We are very aware of that stuff. I know that staff is too, and it's good to keep up to date on that, and we take that very seriously. And it was something that was put on by JPIA, so another thing that adds to our membership, and it was good. So I want to thank the city of La Cañada for hosting that for us.
And that was at no cost.
That was at no cost also, correct. Okay, that's it, all I have, thank you.
Anything else?
No, thank you, I look forward to Friday evenings. Great.
Okay. Item 16, we have one reimbursement of $48.50 for gas to attend joint powers. Councilmember Fish. That was the only one. And then item 17, additional public comments. Betty?
Wait, you thanked everybody, didn't you? Or you have more?
I
I
know.
have one more. Well, as a group, and then one more. Betty Kwan, Temple City resident, 9238 Live Oak Avenue. I would like to thank Madam Mayor and City Council, and also City Manager Cook, because this is right by the Supreme Investing, where the Home Depot side is. There was a huge pothole on Ellis Lane. And I emailed City Manager Cook, and he took care of it very efficiently. And now there's no pothole there.
Yay.
Did
So-
you go personally do that?
No, that would be the staff.
Yeah. And this is right on the other side of those houses, right by Bixby, Fiesta, that area.
Oh, good.
By the Home Depot. There's a huge pothole that every time you go on Ellis Lane, you would just sink in and then come back out. So, and very efficiently, it was efficiently taken care of, and it's works now. Okay,
Great.
and
Thank
so
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Jerry? Nope. Okay, let me see. Is that the last thing?
Yes.
I think we're adjourned.
All right, good job.